Did that really just happen? I promise I will not be singing throughout the entirety of this video. But let us rejoicify because Wicked the movie musical is finally upon us, and if you're anything like this little girl, you've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I certainly have, because that little girl is me. Hi, my name is Emily, or La Movie Mija. I'm a part-time filmmaker, full-time movie lover, a huge fan of movie musicals, and yes, I have seen the stage musical theater production of Wicked a number of times, and now I've seen the movie. So it is my pleasure to bring to you my review of Wicked Part 1. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for checking out my video. I will be completely spoiler free for the first part of this video, answering just all of your most pressing questions like did it really need to be 3 hours long, and giving you my broad strokes reaction to seeing it. And then later on down the yellow brick road, we'll get into more spoiler analysis. But there is a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Misunderstood because of her green skin, a young woman forges an unlikely but profound relationship with a student who has an unflinching desire for popularity. Following an encounter with the Wizard of Oz, their relationship soon reaches a crossroad as their lives begin to take very different paths. The film is directed by John M. Chu, who also directed Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, and it stars Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Marissa Bode, Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh, and so many more. Whew, okay, the elephant in the room. Did the movie need to be 3 hours long? And is this a full movie? And what is it based off of? So yes, the movie is 2 hours and 41 minutes, and it is based off of the stage musical theater production of the same name that debuted on Broadway in 2003. This movie is part one of a two-part series, which I feel like is something they haven't really been explicit about in the marketing, because two-part movies don't really have a great track record in Hollywood. But essentially, you are getting the first act of the musical. Everything in the plot that you would see on the stage from the beginning of the show till intermission is essentially what this movie covers. And then part two will be the second act of the musical, which is a whole other part of the story. And I, for one, am for them splitting this into two movies. I think for the most part, a lot of adaptations get their story shrunken down, like major plot points get cut, or like certain characters get cut. And I feel like this movie has a lot of opportunity to go deeper into character exploration, give us a little bit more backstory, and that is exactly what they did. There is no taking away from the stage production. They are only adding to the story. So that was really the most jarring thing for me in the difference between the stage and this adaptation is the pacing. We are really slowed down. That includes the songs. Like, we are taking some gaps in the songs, some breaks to have the story developed. But for the most part, I think they made a lot of great choices to really give us the character development and let those really cinematic moments just be brought to life. Now, my thing about adaptations is they should never replace the experience of going to the stage show. Like, and this one isn't attempting to do that either. It's a whole new interpretation, and we are getting a whole new like reimaginings, like, or visions of the world itself. Of course, there's a lot of like shared language and shared like visual imagery from the costumes and the production design, but this is a wholly new experience. The sets themselves are remarkable. They built everything from the ground up, and like the characters are walking through these actual like real size sets, and it's pretty astounding. There's so many more colors and textures and things that you don't really get to see in the stage version, which I really admire, because if you're going to bring something to the big screen, might as well build the entire world for it too. I think they even went as far as to planting like thousands of flowers for a certain scene where you see children running through the flowers, and it's very brief, but that just speaks to their commitment to like bringing the world of Oz to life. Something that I really attach myself to when I'm seeing like a musical production brought to the big screen is the costume design, and this does not disappoint. Paul Tazewell is the genius behind it. He also did the costume design for Hamilton. He did the costume design for West Side Story, the Steven Spielberg adaptation, and I'm just a huge fan of his work. He also designed this sweater from Target. It is very soft. I like it a lot. But all of the thought and consideration that he puts into all of his designs is just so astounding, and you can see them in high fidelity in this film. I love that we get to see like the costumes close up, and because you get to do things like montage and see so many different settings that you don't see in the stage version, you get so many more costumes, so many more background characters, so many more scenes and settings, and it's just a little overwhelming for a fan to just like step into that world. Like, I really can't wait to rewatch this movie. The performances are also incredible. I mean, Cynthia Erivo, from the moment she was cast, I knew she was going to bring this just like groundedness, this like soulful gravitas to the character. She has such a light within her, and the way that she is able to not just convey that loneliness and that repression and that mourning in the character, but there's also that light that she brings and that spark. Like when you see her on the big screen, it's going to electrify you. I really did feel like a chill through my body when she first sung in the movie. I was just taken aback. It's not just technically good, it's the way that she's able to bring this character to life and make it her own, which is really hard to do with a character as iconic as the Wicked Witch of the West. This musical, we've seen so many iterations and versions of Elphaba, and every one of them has made it their own, and Cynthia Erivo has done the same, just in this new format. Opposite her, you have Ariana Grande as Glinda, and I will just say, I'm gonna say the hard thing. Ariana Grande was not as remarkable as Glinda as I had hoped. Her voice vocally, she was there, like glorious vocals, like she was serving goddess-like vocals. Her and Cynthia's voices together too were just like butter. I could like close my eyes and just swim in the sounds. Acting portrayal of Glinda felt a little subdued, and I know that is one of the ramifications of adapting to the big screen, is like you're gonna have like different character choices, but I didn't feel like I was missing anything with the choices that Cynthia made versus the choices that Ariana made as Glinda. Ariana herself is very pale. She has very pale hair, very pale eyebrows. So as an actor, I feel like she was really limited with what she could do because her facial expressions just were really subdued and washed out. And I feel like that has a lot more to say about the cinematography, but unfortunately, I feel like it does hinder her performance. But I hope when we see her character's arc through Act 2, that all of that will go away and that maybe I will eat my words. I know right now there's like equal top billing, but this is Cynthia's movie, and like Ariana is here, she's giving it her all, but it's just not on the same level of what we're seeing from Cynthia. In the supporting cast, Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero was delightful. I mean, I knew that he had like a background in dance, but like truly nothing prepared me for what he brought to this movie. It was incredible, and I also thought his singing voice was wonderful. He has the right amount of chemistry with everybody, just like that like vivacious, flirtatious energy that you love from the character. And yes, if you're a fan of Bridgerton, that is the same horse that he rides in Bridgerton. If you're like rewatching Bridgerton like me, for the plot. Nobody plays the woman that you really want to impress, but you're also really afraid of, but you're also really attracted to, quite like Michelle Yeoh. And she does that so well in this one. A complete surprise for me was Marissa Bode, who plays Nessa Rose. Nessa Rose is a wheelchair user in the musical. That is true of the stage production as well. And this is the first time that they cast an actress who is an actual wheelchair user outside of the play, which I think is wonderful. So kudos to casting for finding Marissa, because I believe this is her like first role ever in a film, which I mean, wow, she's holding her own and she's truly a delight. Ethan Slater surprised me with his singing voice as well. So, okay, Ariana. Peter Dinklage, I've heard his singing voice before in Cyrano. Like, I forgot he was in this movie because we don't see him because we are getting the CGI goat. Dr. Dillamond is a goat in the stage production. It's different because it's like an actor with like goat prosthetics to make him look like a goat, but he's still walking on he's a bipedal walking on his two legs. But in the film, I mean, I guess I like knew they were animals on the stage, but just seeing them as actual animals was like kind of a surprise. But I really felt like it adds to the story so much. Like the animal plotline within this movie is really important, and to see them as actual animals, I feel like adds to the vulnerability of those characters. Okay, I talked briefly about the cinematography, but it is something that needs to be addressed because I'm sorry, I could not look past it. I wanted to give this movie the benefit of the doubt, and I did all the way up until showtime. Everyone has been saying like, oh, it looks washed out, it looks pale, it's not gonna look as vibrant, and people, you know, were quick to judge it, and I was trying my best to keep an open mind and really hoping that that's not what it was gonna look like in its final form. However, they made some really interesting light choices in this movie, and that's not just like the pale desaturation look that they went for throughout the entire thing. And I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. If you look up behind the scenes videos of Wicked, like there's a lot at this point, like little featurettes, they'll show you behind the scenes and the colors are so vibrant and wonderful. And then you see like the actual movie and you're like, Why? I really don't understand the decision for this, and I think that's really what's eating at me, because they did all of the work, they did all the steps right. They like made these practical sets, they had these incredible costume designs, they did all of that work to create this world that you can step into, and then they completely wiped it of a lot of its soul. And it's not just in like the film grading itself, but also like the lighting choices they made throughout the film. There's certain parts where like entire scenes are backlit, meaning like if you've ever like gone on a Zoom call, or if you've ever tried to take like a selfie in your house, you always go try to face the light so that you can have your face be seen. When you have like a window behind you or a light source behind your head, you become like a silhouette and you're like harder to distinguish from the background. And there's a lot of instances in this film where the light is coming from directly behind the characters and they're already washed out from this like color grading choices they made, and it just really hinders the performances. It's like at those moments the film is working against itself, because so much of this work, a lot of these like quiet moments with these characters, relies on their facial expressions, and it relies on them being able to connect with the audience that way. And Cynthia, oh my gosh, she's so good at doing that. I know she kind of went off with her post commenting on that, the edited poster of hers, saying that she needs her eyes to communicate, or that she communicates with her eyes. Well, let me tell you, she wasn't lying. She communicates with her eyes. But I feel like this movie at times was just like making us fight to see them. And especially like poor Ariana did not have a chance. Ariana is just washed out. Like she is the same color as some of the buildings. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. She just looked like she blends into the background completely. The singing itself in this film, I already talked a little bit about it, but a lot of the singing was done live, meaning that they, you know, in some musicals, they'll record a track and then they'll play it out loud, and then they'll like sing along to the track while they're filming. And this, they're actually singing as they're filming this scene, which is really a hard commitment to do. And it just speaks to the vocal agility and the like vocal abilities of these actresses, because imagine filming something all day. I mean, my voice is getting a little hoarse right now and I haven't been talking that long, but imagine doing that all day, the same scene over and over and over. There was at least 150, I believe, shooting days for this film. So some of the sequences you see, they take about 20 days to film just a single sequence, meaning you are doing the same thing over and over again for hours on end, and it's just such a strain on you physically. I can't imagine how it is on you vocally. So to be performing at this like high level and doing that live singing is really astounding. Which brings me to the fact that they've been promoting this so heavily as a musical is pretty remarkable, given the recent track records of like, surprise, it's a musical we've had in theaters, from like Joker to Wonka, one of which I really loved. And no, it's not Joker. I really appreciate how much they've embraced the musical of it. It really called in like the musical community. Like at my showing, people were definitely there with their Wicked Broadway merch, and people clapped after some of the numbers, which was so respectful, and it was done in a really tasteful way, and people were just really excited. So I really appreciate the fact that they've leaned into marketing this as a musical, because the people need to know. That is a deciding factor for me, and I am deciding, yes, if it is a musical, I want to hear the music, I want to see the people sing, I want to be there. Overall, I think that whether or not you are well versed in your Ozian lore, from The Wizard of Oz to the stage musical theater production, you don't have to know a whole lot about the backstory in order to enjoy this movie. Of course, there's a lot of little tidbits here and there that you will be rewarded for having done the legwork to know all these things, but it's not a requirement. I think those are the best kinds of adaptations because it brings more people in. It's like this idea of abundance instead of exclusivity, which I think is more resonates closely with the heart of this film. I can't wait to watch this movie 100 more times. Check out my cup that I got at the AMC. It comes with a little Elphaba topper. It's so cool. And it's like this rubber material, which I really appreciate because my hands cannot be trusted. Sometimes things just fall out of my hands for no reason at all, unprovoked completely. Maybe I have some magic. So now we're gonna get into some spoiler talk. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel so that you can come back to this video once you've seen the movie and can talk about some of the spoilers with me. I post one new movie review every week, and sometimes I even take you to the movies with me. So make sure to subscribe to my channel, or if you want more movie news and reviews and personal content from me, you can follow me at Movie Mija on TikTok and Instagram. All right, let's talk about some spoilers. So first thing I want to talk about are some of the things that were added that we don't see in the stage musical theater production, and one of which is the backstory and the childhood Elphaba and Nessa Rose. Those child actors who portray them were so cute. It like hurt. Like they were so cute. My entire theater audibly was like, "Aw," for good reason. Like they were so adorable. Emotional manipulation, seeing the baby versions of them, it really hurt me to see like people picking on little Elphaba. And I really like how they tied that image of her into that pivotal moment where she's falling from the tower, trying to fly, doesn't have her broom yet, and she sees her younger self. I love not only when we get like backstory or little like bits like that, but when they make sense to further drive home the emotional peaks of the film. And I think that those inclusions of like younger Nessa Rose and Elphaba really do a lot for the story. And we get that moment where she finally like grabs the broom and is able to fly. Exploded version of defying gravity, I guess that's the best way to describe it. Is like we're getting more sequences in between like the moments in the song, and I really like how that edited all together for that end. It was so powerful and so moving. I know we were trying to pick apart the war cry and make fun of it. Truly, when we see it in its final version, it just emotionally going through the entire experience of the film and getting to that point, it was just so moving and powerful. And yeah. Wow, I really skipped ahead right to the end there. I mean, Elphaba singing Defying Gravity is like top of mind right now because Cynthia really took this experience and this opportunity to make it a singular vision of Elphaba like I've never seen before, and it was so freaking cool. Speaking of childhood Elphaba and Nessa Rose, we also get to see a lot more of the animals within society, namely her caretaker or her like nanny, who is a bear. Getting to see that was so wonderful because it also adds to like the greater sense of duty that Elphaba has to protect animals because she has this backstory with them. We get to better understand her affinity for wanting to like befriend Dr. Dilliman, not just because she feels alone within her classmates, but because she already has this connection to animals. And that connection to animals was such a moving part for me when like growing up watching this musical. That was such a point of radicalization for myself, and then getting to see like Elphaba be radicalized as well, like witnessing these people that she loves and respects being ostracized was just so powerful, so moving. Being able to see Dr. Dilliman as like an actual goat again, or seeing like these animals as actual animals, not just like people in animal prosthetics, was so compelling because it just makes them so much more vulnerable, and it makes the terror that they're experiencing that much more palpable and like scary. Adding to the animal lore within this movie, we get to see a moment in which Elphaba and Nessa Rose first arrive at Shiz, and they have that moment where Nessa Rose is getting pulled away by her professor, and Elphaba is trying to stop her, and her powers break out, and it kind of like throws everybody around or throws all these objects around, one of which gets thrown up to a wall, and it breaks the Wizard of Oz, and that gets broken down, and behind it is revealed to see like a collection of animals, and that goes along with what Dr. Dilliman was saying, that there was a lot more animals teaching at Shiz years ago. So seeing the level of isolation that they're starting to experience as they're getting pushed out of society, it was just so terrifying, especially given like our current political climate. I can't reason with anybody who's like, don't bring politics into this. Girl, it's wicked. Like if you have not understood that this was a story about a radicalization of one woman and her trying to stand up for good in the face of evil, even if that means that she is singularly doing so and ostracizing herself from the people who are just okay with being compliant with fascism, then you missed the point, and that's not my fault. Now, I know I kind of harped on Ariana earlier, not to say that I didn't enjoy her fully, but I know that she kind of had some challenges with being washed out with that cinematography, but I will say that I was so impressed and taken aback by her performance of Popular. Her comedic timing, her dancing, like all of those elements within that particular sequence were so good. Like I wanted that energy from Ari the entire time. I think from that point on through the rest of the film, I was so much more bought into her as Glinda than I was for the first half of the film, but she really turned it around after that. That's when she showed us that this is the role that was born to play, that she's been gunning to play her entire life. I really felt the fire within her come to fruition with that sequence, and she was untouchable in that one. Like, no notes. One of the reasons I get so sad about the cinematography is because I really do think that so many of the other elements were there, especially when we go to Oz and we get to see all the beautiful greens, and in the Wizard's Tower too. Like I feel like the same amount of conversations that they were having for the Barbie pink that they were trying to decide for the Barbie movie, like there must have been just as many conversations trying to figure out the perfect green for this film, and it was so beautiful. In moments where it was well lit and like exposed, it's like when they're meeting the wizard for the first time and there's fire going out the sides of the walls, like that helped to illuminate the room, and seeing those greens come to life was just so magnificent, and was also like a really great callback to the original Wizard of Oz film. I really love that little set that they built for the wizard to kind of do his sentimental man sequence. That's always like a skip song for me. Like it's always such a snooze fest in the stage production, but Jeff Goldblum, he made me a fan. Like I really loved his rendition, and the little set that they're navigating about was so magical and dazzling. Like I was getting pulled into the wizard's like trance. Like I have to remember who the real enemy is here. But no, he was fantastic. I really love that sequence. Dancing Through Life, it's one of my favorite songs. I love it. I love it so much. I love that so much plot happens. I love that they're going to so many different locations within that song, and Jonathan Bailey was so good. The way he was able to move his feet with those books, astounding. The way that library was rotating. Christopher Nolan has been real quiet since this dropped, but that was so awesome. The athleticism in all those dancers with the spinning library shelves, and everything was just so cool. And the camera, the way it moved around that entire sequence, just breathed so much life into it. What a choice that was. I don't know, guys. Let me know if I'm harping too much about the lighting, because maybe I've just been sitting here thinking about it too much. Maybe I just need to go watch the movie again. Something I am excited to look more into as information about the film comes out in this next week is that little song that is in One Short Day, where we get to see the cameos from Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, the OG Elphaba and Glinda. That song is new to me. I believe. I don't remember that from the musical, or maybe it's not on the soundtrack, but I don't remember them telling the story of the Wizard of Oz. But I really liked that they gave us more backstory there. And within that story, they're talking about how the wizard was able to read the Grimoire, and he is saying this weird chant like Omaha. Is he saying Omaha? Is that where he's from? That's not too far from Kansas, right? But yeah, I really liked getting to see more backstory there. And they did a really good job of giving us all these little Easter eggs within the attic of the tower of the wizard as well. When Elphaba and Glinda are about to sing Defying Gravity, like we get to see like some signs from his days as a potion peddler and his little cart as well. And I really enjoyed it, that hot air balloon sequence. Like, seeing that kind of action was so cool, and it really raised the stakes for me. I'm telling you, I knew how this movie was going to end, and I was still on the edge of my seat. I am sure I am missing a whole lot of other things to talk about as well, but do let me know what your favorite parts of the movie were. If you have any theories or things that I missed, I would love to know. I will also be sharing more information probably on my TikTok in the coming days as I reflect more on this movie, but I really just wanted to get this video out as soon as possible because I was just so excited. But thank you so much for joining me on this fabulous ride. That is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.